The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was quiet for the first time in 300 years. 47 different alien species sat in their seats, but nobody was talking. They all stared at the big screen in the center of the room where red dots kept appearing and disappearing. Each red dot was a Dead World Dot ambassador. Vextar from the Zephyrian Alliance walked slowly to the center of the hall. His blue skin looked pale, and his hands shook as he touched the control panel. The screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Huge sections of the outer rim were completely red now. "The Devourers have returned," Vextar said quietly. His voice echoed in the silent hall. 700 worlds are gone. 700 worlds consumed in just 3 months. Our combined fleets barely slow them down. A tall crystal being named Ziloth stood up quickly. His body made a ringing sound like broken glass. "We need answers, not fear. What about the old emergency plans? There must be something in the ancient records." High Counselor Morden was the oldest being in the hall. He had lived for over 2,000 years and seen many wars. His old fingers moved slowly across his translation device. When he spoke, everyone listened. "There is one option," Morden said, with great reluctance. Article 7 of the Emergency War Laws, but it was locked away for very good reasons. The hall filled with confused voices as different species talked among themselves. Morden raised his wrinkled hand for silence. "The humans," he said simply. "We could ask the humans for help." The reaction was immediate. Several beings made sounds of disgust. Others looked frightened. A few even stood up to leave. Representative Keth Ara from the Hive World spoke first. Her insect-like body clicked as she moved. "You cannot be serious. The humans are barely civilized. They are violent savages who know only war." "Yes," Morden agreed sadly, "but they are effective. The Devourers destroyed the entire Altarian Empire in just 4 days. The humans held them back for 3 full years, using nothing but metal bullets and nuclear bombs." "That was different," argued another council member. "The humans were desperate then. They had nowhere to run." "And now we are desperate," Morden replied. "We have nowhere to run either." The hall fell silent again as everyone thought about this. For 200 years, the humans had been locked away behind their solar system. After the Treaty of Proxima, they agreed to stay in their corner of space and leave the galaxy alone. In return, the galaxy left them alone too, but everyone remembered why the treaty was needed. The humans had been discovered by accident when an Altarian exploration ship found Earth. First contact went badly. The humans thought they were being invaded. 3 wars followed, each more brutal than the last. The humans fought differently than anyone else. They did not follow the rules of civilized warfare. They attacked civilian targets. They used banned weapons. They fought dirty and without honor. But they won. The Treaty of Proxima was signed after the humans destroyed an entire Altarian battle fleet, using ships that should not have been able to win. The galaxy decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to roam free. So they were contained. Now 200 years later, no ship had successfully made contact with the human home system. Their space was protected by thousands of automated defense stations that shot at anything that came close. "Even if we wanted to contact them," said Admiral Dexter of the Hegemony Fleet, "how would we do it? Their defenses are impenetrable." "We broadcast on the old diplomatic frequencies," Morden answered. "The same ones used during the peace talks. If any humans are listening, they will hear us." Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Captain Jake Morrison was having a boring day. His ship, the Endeavor, was on routine patrol near Pluto. After 20 years in the human space navy, Jake had gotten used to the quiet life. No aliens had tried to contact Earth in decades. Lieutenant Amy Parker was the ship's communications officer. She was young and eager, always hoping something interesting would happen. Today was her lucky day. "Captain," Amy called out from her station. I'm picking up something strange on the old diplomatic channels. Jake looked up from his coffee. What kind of strange? It's a transmission from outside the system. Alien origin. And sir, it's using the old emergency codes. Jake sat up straight. The emergency codes had not been used since the Treaty of Proxima. Put it on the main screen. The bridge crew gathered around as Amy worked to decode the signal. What they heard made everyone stop breathing. The message was from the Galactic Council. They were asking for help. They're facing something called the Devourers, Amy explained as she translated. According to this, it's consumed hundreds of worlds. Their entire combined fleet cannot stop it. Jake leaned back in his command chair. A bitter smile crossed his face. So let me understand this. For 200 years, they've told us to stay locked up and play nice. Now they want our help? Sir, it sounds really bad. They say this thing has destroyed more worlds in 3 months than were lost in the last galactic war. The bridge was quiet, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Everyone there had learned about the old wars in school. Earth's first contact with aliens had been violent and bloody. It took 3 wars before the galaxy decided to leave humans alone. Set course for Earth, Jake ordered finally. This is way above my authority level. But Amy, keep listening to their transmissions. If these devourers are half as dangerous as they claim, we might be looking at the end of everything. As the Endeavor turned toward home, Jake thought about the irony. The galaxy had spent 2 centuries treating humans like dangerous animals that needed to be caged. Now those same aliens were begging for help from the very people they feared, back. In the Galactic Council Hall, the debate continued. Some species wanted to try fighting the Devourers alone. Others wanted to evacuate to distant galaxies. But more and more voices were supporting Mordoon's terrible suggestion. Send the message, Counselor Tarak finally said. Ask the humans for help, but be prepared for them to say no. We have not been kind to them. They will help, Mordoon said with certainty. It is in their nature. Humans cannot resist a fight, especially when they might lose. The transmission was sent on all the old frequencies. A simple message in basic galactic standard. The galaxy is in danger. Please help us. Deep in space, automated monitoring stations picked up the signal and relayed it to Earth. For the first time in 200 years, the galaxy was calling. The question now was whether humanity would answer. The Pentagon had not seen this much activity since the old alien wars. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a long table in the most secure room in the building. Around her were the most important military leaders on Earth. Everyone looked tired and worried. Secretary of Defense Robert Kim spread papers across the table. Madam President, we have been studying the alien transmissions for 3 days now. The situation is worse than we first thought. President Carter picked up one of the reports. Tell me exactly what we are dealing with. General Frank Collins stood up and activated the wall screens. Maps of the galaxy appeared, with large red areas marking dead zones. These Devourers are not like any enemy we have ever studied. They do not just attack worlds, they consume them completely. Director of Intelligence Maria Santos stepped forward. She had been the government's expert on alien affairs for 15 years. Our deep space sensors have been tracking strange energy readings for months. We thought it was natural space phenomena. Now we know it was the Devourers moving through the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Chun was in charge of all human space forces. She looked uncomfortable as she spoke. The problem is scale, Madam President. Our entire fleet was built to defend our solar system. We have never planned for fighting a war across the galaxy. Dr. Paul Wright from the Advanced Weapons Department cleared his throat. He was a thin man who spent most of his time in laboratories. Actually, we might have advantages the aliens do not expect. President Carter raised an eyebrow. Explain that. The aliens have spent thousands of years developing advanced weapons. Energy beams, gravity manipulators, exotic matter weapons. But all their reports show the same pattern. The Devourers adapt to these weapons very quickly. Dr. Wright activated another screen showing battle footage from alien encounters. Look at this. The first energy weapon hits do damage. But by the second or third shot, the Devourers have learned to absorb or deflect the attack. So they're fancy. Weapons stop working, General Collins said. What does that have to do with us? We never developed fancy weapons, Dr. Wright replied with a smile. We perfected the old ways: kinetic weapons, nuclear bombs, chemical explosives, things that work the same way every time. Secretary Kim nodded slowly. The aliens call our weapons primitive, but primitive might be exactly what we need. Admiral. Chun pulled up displays of Earth's orbital defenses. We have been preparing for alien invasion for 200 years. Every weapon system we built was designed to fight enemies with superior technology. Show me what we have, the President ordered. General Collins took control of the presentation. The Orbital Defense Network has 12,000 automated weapons platforms. Each one carries nuclear missiles and kinetic bombardment weapons. We also have the ground-based artillery systems. And our fleet? 76 ships of various classes, Admiral Chun reported. All designed for close-range combat using conventional weapons. No energy beams or exotic matter. Just good old-fashioned explosives and metal projectiles. Director Santos brought up intelligence reports. There's something else to consider. The aliens are offering to end our isolation if we help them. Full membership in the Galactic Council. Access to their technology and trade networks. President Carter was quiet for a long moment. She had been leading Earth for 8 years, but this was the biggest decision any human leader had ever faced. What are the risks? She asked. Unknown, Admiral Chun admitted. We would be taking our fleet outside the solar system for the first time in 2 centuries. We do not know what we might face, and if we refuse to help? Secretary Kim answered. That question, the galaxy burns. If the aliens are telling the truth, these Devourers will eventually consume everything. Including us. Dr. Wright added more information. Our scientists have been studying the energy signatures. If the Devourers continue at their current rate, they will reach our local galactic arm within 50 years. So we can fight them now with allies, or fight them later alone, the President said. That appears to be the choice, yes. President Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington, D.C., millions of people going about their normal lives, not knowing that their government was deciding the fate of humanity. General Collins, how long would it take to mobilize our forces? The 7th. Fleet could be ready in 48 hours. Admiral Chun's task force is already on standby. But Madam President, Secretary Kim interrupted, we need to consider public opinion. The American people remember the alien wars. They might not support helping the same species that once tried to conquer us. The Altarians tried to conquer U.S., Director Santos corrected. Most of the current Galactic Council opposed that war. President Carter turned back to face her advisors. What does your gut tell you, General? Can we win? General Collins thought carefully before answering. Against the aliens? Yes, we proved that already. Against these Devourers? Unknown. But I would rather find out while we have allies than wait and face them alone. Admiral Chun? I agree with the General. Our weapons are designed to fight things we cannot understand. That seems to be exactly what these Devourers are. President Carter made her decision. Prepare the fleet. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them help is coming. What should the message say? Director Santos asked. The President smiled grimly. Tell them that Earth remembers the old wars. We remember how to fight enemies that seem impossible to defeat. And tell them that when humans make a promise, we keep it. As the meeting broke up, General Collins stayed behind. "Madam President, there is one more thing. The troops are excited about this mission. They have been training their whole lives for a real fight. That worries me or makes me proud. I cannot decide which." "Both, probably," the general replied. "But Madam President, if these aliens are as desperate as they seem, they are about to learn why the galaxy locked us away. Not because we were too weak to be trusted. Because we were too strong." Within hours, orders went out to military bases across Earth and the orbital stations. The 7th Fleet began loading supplies and ammunition. Soldiers who had never expected to see real combat started preparing for war. Captain Jake Morrison received his new orders while the Endeavour was still traveling back to Earth. He was to report to Admiral Chun's flagship immediately upon arrival. "Looks like we are going back out there," he told his crew. Lieutenant Amy Parker looked excited and nervous. "Do you think we can really help them, Captain?" Jake looked at the tactical displays showing their weapon systems. Primitive by alien standards, but proven effective. "Amy, the galaxy spent 200 years telling us we were too violent for civilized space. Now they need someone violent enough to save them. What does that make us?" "The right tool for the job," Jake replied. Finally, the die was cast. For the first time in 2 centuries, humanity was going to war. But this time, they would be fighting to save the galaxy that had once feared them. The human battle group came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a hammer blow. 5 ships emerged from the swirling light of the jump portal, their hulls dark and angular against the stars. They did not move with the smooth grace of alien vessels. Instead, they flew like predators closing in on prey. Admiral Lisa Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Intrepid. Around her, her crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew this was the moment they had trained for their entire lives. The first real combat mission for humanity in 200 years. "Sensor contact," reported Commander Steve Harris from the science station. 3 large vessels at the 4th planet. They matched the Devourer ship profiles from the alien intelligence. "Reports. How large?" Admiral Chun asked. "The biggest one is 15 kilometers long. But Admiral, the readings are strange. The ships do not appear to be made of metal or any material in our databases." Captain Ben Taylor commanded the destroyer Defiance. He was the youngest ship captain in the fleet, but he had studied every battle report from the old alien wars. "Admiral, we have visual contact with the enemy." The main screen showed the Devourer ships for the first time. They were horrible to look at. The vessels seemed to be alive, pulsing with veins of sickly light. Their hulls moved and shifted like breathing skin. They were not ships in any human sense. They were creatures. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Carol Murphy, the Defiance's tactical officer. "What are those things?" "Targets," Captain Taylor replied coldly. "Just targets." The Devourers were busy consuming the 4th planet. Massive chunks of rock and metal were being torn from the surface and absorbed into the alien ships. The planet was already half gone, its core exposed and glowing. "Admiral," came the voice of Captain Nicole Parker from the cruiser Richmond. "We are receiving transmissions from survivors on the outer moon. Zephyrian civilians requesting immediate evacuation." "Negative, Richmond. First priority is intelligence gathering. We need to see how these things fight before we commit to rescue." Operations. The largest Devourer ship suddenly stopped its feeding. The massive creature turned toward the human fleet with movements that were disturbingly organic. Sensor arrays that looked more grown than built focused on the newcomers. "They have noticed us," Commander Harris reported. "The enemy is scanning our ships. Let them look," Admiral Chun said. "All ships, prepare for combat. Remember your training. These things adapt to energy weapons, but they have never faced human warfare." The Devourer ship attacked without warning. A beam of pure energy lanced out from its center, bright enough to hurt the eyes even through the filtered screens. The beam struck the Defiance directly amidships. Captain Taylor gripped his command chair as his ship shook under the impact. Damage report. Forward armor is gone, hull breaches in sections 7 and 9, but structural integrity is holding, reported Lieutenant Dan Foster from Engineering. We are still in the fight, sir. The alien observers who had been monitoring the battle from a safe distance expected the human ship to be destroyed. Every other vessel that had taken a direct hit from a Devourer primary weapon had been vaporized instantly. But the Defiance was still there, wounded but fighting. The Devourer ship paused, as if confused. It fired again, but this time the beam was weaker, more tentative. The creature was trying to understand why its prey had not died. All ships, this is Admiral Chun, weapons free. Show them what 200 years of paranoia and preparation can accomplish. The human response was immediate and devastating. The Intrepid launched a full spread of kinetic torpedoes. Simple metal slugs accelerated to 20% of light speed. Behind them came nuclear missiles, their warheads burning with the power of small suns. The smallest Devourer ship took the full impact of the kinetic barrage. The metal slugs punched through its organic hull like bullets through flesh. The creature writhed in agony as nuclear fire consumed its insides. Within seconds, it was dead, its massive body drifting apart in space. Target destroyed, reported the Intrepid's weapons officer with satisfaction. The two remaining Devourer ships began to retreat, moving away from the human fleet with obvious fear. But Admiral Chun was not done with them. Launch the boarding pods, she ordered. I want samples. Admiral, Captain Parker protested. Boarding actions against unknown alien vessels could be extremely dangerous. Everything we do out here is dangerous, Captain. But we need to understand these things if we are going to fight them effectively. The boarding pods were small, armored craft designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver Marines directly into hostile ships. Each pod carried a squad of human soldiers in full combat armor. Sergeant Kim O'Brien led the first boarding party. She was a veteran of the Mars Colonial Wars and had volunteered for this mission specifically because it sounded impossible. As her pods smashed through the hull of the wounded Devourer ship, she activated her suit's external cameras. Command, this is Boarding Team Alpha. We are inside the target vessel. The interior is ... unusual. The inside of the Devourer ship was like being inside a living creature. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling. The air was thick with an oily mist that made breathing difficult, even with sealed suits. Contacts ahead, reported Corporal Matt Davis as shapes moved in. Shadows. They do not look friendly. The Devourer crew were as alien as their ship. They moved on too many legs and had eyes that glowed with inner fire. When they saw the humans, they attacked with claws and teeth and weapons that shot streams of acid. Engage targets, Sergeant O'Brien ordered. The human Marines opened fire with conventional assault rifles. The bullets tore through the alien creatures like they were made of paper. The Devourers had evolved to resist energy weapons, but they had no defense against simple kinetic force. This is almost too easy, Corporal Davis commented as he reloaded. His weapon, stay focused, O'Brien warned. Easy can turn hard real fast. Back on the Intrepid, Admiral Chun watched the boarding action through the Marines' helmet cameras. The sight of human soldiers advancing through the alien ship filled her with pride and worry in equal measure. Admiral, Commander Harris called out, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to know our status. Tell them we have engaged the enemy and achieved tactical victory. 3 Devourer ships destroyed or disabled. Minimal human casualties. They are also asking about our methods. Apparently, our weapons readings are causing concern among the alien observers. Admiral Chun smiled coldly. Tell them we are using standard human military doctrine. If they do not like our methods, they should not have asked for our help." The boarding teams finished their mission and returned to their ships with samples of Devourer technology and biology. The surviving alien vessel limped away into deep space, clearly no longer interested in fighting. Captain Taylor surveyed the damage to his ship with satisfaction. The Defiance had taken the worst of the enemy fire, but she was still operational. More importantly, they had proven that human weapons could hurt these creatures. "Set course for the next system," Admiral Chun ordered. "According to intelligence, there are more Devourer ships 3 light-years from here. Time to see if this was a fluke or the beginning of something bigger." As the human fleet prepared for their next jump, the galaxy watched and wondered. For 200 years, they had feared human military capabilities. Now they were seeing exactly why that fear had been justified. The Devourers had consumed hundreds of worlds and defeated every fleet sent against them. But they had never faced an enemy that fought without rules, without honor, and without mercy. They were about to learn what human warfare really meant. 6 months later, the war had changed everything. The galaxy watched in amazement and horror as human forces swept through system after system, leaving nothing but dead Devourer ships and sterilized worlds behind them. The humans did not fight like anyone else in galactic history. They fought like they were exterminating dangerous animals. Colonel Jack Williams stood in his command bunker on the surface of Rigel Prime, watching tactical displays as his Marines cleared the last Devourer nest from the planet's core. Around him, alien observers from 12 different species watched with fascination and fear. "Your people fight without honor," said Commander Veltar of the surviving Altarians. His blue skin was pale as he watched human soldiers use flamethrowers to burn out Devourer breeding chambers. "You show no mercy to your enemies." Colonel Williams spit tobacco juice into a cup and looked up at the alien. "Son, we do not see enemies here. We see a pest problem. And humans have gotten very good at pest control over the years." The truth was more complex than Williams wanted to explain. Humanity had spent 200 years studying every piece of information about galactic warfare. They knew that most alien species fought according to rules. They believed in honor, individual combat, and protecting civilians. The Devourers had learned to use these limitations against them. Humans had no such limitations when facing extinction level threats. Captain Ron Martinez led his assault team through the tunnels beneath Rigel Prime's capital city. His power armor was scarred from dozens of similar operations. Behind him, 20 human Marines advanced through passages that glowed with alien bioluminescence. "Contact front," called Sergeant Kim O'Brien as nightmare creatures swarmed toward them from the darkness. The Devourers in their natural form were worse than their ships. They moved like spiders but had too many teeth and claws that dripped acid. "Light them up," Martinez ordered. The Marines opened fire with weapons that would have horrified the Galactic Council. Explosive bullets designed to fragment inside organic targets. Incendiary rounds that burned through biological matter like paper. Chemical weapons that had been banned by every civilized species for centuries. The Devourers had evolved over millions of years to resist energy weapons and adapt to most conventional attacks. But they had never faced creatures that designed weapons specifically to cause maximum suffering to living tissue. "Advancing through Sector 7, O'Brien reported as her team moved deeper into the nest. "Devourer resistance is collapsing." "Good," Martinez replied. "Remember, we do not take prisoners. These things cannot be reasoned with or contained. Total extermination is the only option." Back on Earth, President Helen Carter received daily reports about the war's progress. Secretary of Defense Robert Kim spread the latest intelligence across her desk with obvious satisfaction. "Final numbers for this week, Madam President. 15 more Devourer hive ships destroyed. 4 worlds completely sterilized, approximately. 2 million enemy entities eliminated. Human casualties remain extremely light. What about galactic reaction to our methods? Secretary Kim's expression became more complicated. Mixed responses. The worlds we have saved are grateful, obviously. But there is growing concern among Council members about whether humanity represents a solution or a new problem. President Carter laughed without humor. They asked us to solve their devourer problem. We did exactly that. If they do not like how we solved it, they should have been more specific in their request. The Galactic Council has sent formal requests for humanity to accept full membership and take leadership roles in galactic defense. 17 worlds have specifically requested permanent human military bases for protection. And the downside? Some species are saying we might be more dangerous than the devourers ever were. There is talk of limiting human military expansion once the current crisis is over. President Carter stood and walked to her window, looking out at the peaceful city below. Send a message to the Council. We will accept membership, but on our terms. Full technology sharing, unrestricted travel rights for human vessels, and human naval bases in any system that requests protection. And if they refuse, the President's smile was cold as winter ice. Then we remind them that the galaxy has been crying for help for 6 months. Every time they called, humans answered. They might want to think carefully about what happens if we stop being the ones who come when they call for aid. Admiral Lisa Chun wrote her final battle report from the bridge of the Intrepid as her fleet returned to Earth. The war was over. The last major devourer concentration had been eliminated 3 days ago. Humanity had accomplished in 6 months what the combined galactic fleet could not do in 3 years. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We are receiving congratulations from 47 different worlds. They are calling us heroes and saviors." And the other messages? 12 species have filed formal complaints about human military methods. They say we violated the Galactic War Crimes Treaty in 17 different ways. Admiral Chun considered this information. Remind them that humans never signed their War Crimes Treaty. We were not members of their civilization when they wrote those rules. What should I tell the Council about future human military policy? Tell them the truth. Humans fight wars to win them, not to look good doing it. If they want pretty wars with honor and mercy, they can handle their own problems. If they want their enemies completely destroyed, they call us. The final Alien Observer Report was filed by Ambassador Kexton of the Rigel Republic. He had watched human forces in action for the entire 6-month campaign. His conclusions were disturbing to many Council members. The humans are terrifyingly efficient at warfare, Kexton wrote. They do not seek glory or honor. They seek total victory through overwhelming application of force. They study their enemies completely, then design weapons and tactics specifically to exploit every weakness. More concerning is their attitude toward war itself. Most species see warfare as a last resort, a failure of diplomacy. Humans see it as a tool to be used when other tools are insufficient. They are not ashamed of their violence. They are proud of their effectiveness. The devourers consumed 700 worlds before we stopped them. The humans eliminated the remaining devourer. Forces in 6 months with minimal casualties to themselves. The question facing the Council is whether we have traded one existential threat for another. Back on Rigel Prime, Colonel Williams received orders to prepare his forces for departure. The planet was declared completely clear of devourer infestation. Another successful mission completed. "What happens now, Colonel?" asked one of his younger officers. "Do we go home?" Williams looked up at the stars, where human ships patrolled the space lanes that had once belonged to monsters. "Son, I do not think we are going home anytime soon. The galaxy spent 200 years learning to live without humans. Now they are going to have to learn to live with us again. Is that good or bad?" "Depends on your perspective," Williams replied. If you are a peaceful species that just wants to trade and explore, having humans around is probably pretty good. If you are something that wants to hurt innocent people, Williams smiled grimly. Well, those things tend to have short lifespans these days. The war was over, but the consequences were just beginning. Humanity had proven they could save the galaxy from monsters. The question now was whether the galaxy could handle being saved by people who were very good at being monsters themselves when the situation required it. President Carter's final statement to the Galactic Council was simple and direct. The galaxy cried for aid. Humans answered that call. We will continue to answer it for any world that asks. But we will do it our way, using our methods. If that makes some of you uncomfortable, remember that comfortable species do not usually survive when the real monsters come calling. The stars burned on, and humanity took its place among them. Not as the junior partners they had once been, but as the species other civilizations called when they needed something destroyed completely and without question. The galaxy had gotten exactly what it asked for.